I've been in combat. I've felt the heat wave from an IED blast. I know what fear feels like when your life is actually on the line. Nothing prepared me for what I saw through my night vision at Peason Ridge. It was 2017, a live-fire training exercise deep in the backwoods of Louisiana, 10 miles from the nearest paved road. Peason Ridge isn't the kind of forest that feels welcoming. It's dense, wet, suffocating. The air smells like damp earth and swamp rot, and it clings to you. By 9 at night, the heat hadn't broken. Our patrol base was winding down, soldiers talking quietly, radios crackling, cicadas screaming in the dark. I was exhausted, in that deep, satisfying way after a full day in the field. I grabbed my rifle out of habit and walked 200 feet into the tree line to take a leak. Told my buddy I'd be right back. Routine. I'd done it 100 times. I flipped down my PVS-14 night vision monocular. The world went green. I scanned the area while I finished up. Old habit. You never really stop doing perimeter checks. Through the monocular, a wide-open field stretched out in front of me. Maybe 2 football fields across, the tall grass glowing pale green against the dark. That's when something moved at the far tree line. My brain said deer. Deer move at night, nothing unusual. But then the shape started rising, not stepping forward, rising, unfolding upward, piece by piece, slow and deliberate. It kept going, past the height of a hog, past the height of a man, 7 feet, 8, maybe 9. It locked into place above the scrub pines, shoulders so wide they blotted out the tree line behind it. Arms hanging loose at its sides, too long, hands dangling well past its knees. That's a bear, I told myself. Bear on its hind legs. But bears don't hold that posture. Bears sway. Bears drop back down. This thing stood perfectly still. And then its head turned, slow and deliberate, pivoting until it was aimed directly at me. 200 yards away, in the dark, through a monocular, and I felt it find me, felt the exact moment its attention locked on. The cicadas kept screaming. The world didn't go silent. Somehow, that was worse. It dropped into a running stance, and then it came, bipedal, sprinting across the open field, covering ground at a speed my depth perception, trained from years of range exercises, told me was around 30 miles an hour, maybe faster. The loping stride was wrong in a way I don't have words for. And the arms, those grotesquely long arms, swinging so low the hands dragged through the grass as it ran, leaving trails in the green phosphor image. I am a trained infantryman. I was holding a loaded rifle. I couldn't move. Not a choice, not hesitation. My body had bypassed everything. Training, discipline, combat instinct, and gone somewhere older. I just stood there, watching an 8-foot thing sprint toward me in silence because I couldn't hear footsteps, couldn't hear breathing, couldn't hear anything except my own heart hammering against my eardrums. The thought that surfaced, clear and cold, not human, not human, not human. It veered. Maybe 75 yards from my position, it cut hard to the right and flowed into the tree line. No crash, no snapping branches, just a fluid shadow that merged with the pines and disappeared. I don't remember running back to the base. I just remember the red lens flashlight in my face and my team leader's hands on my shoulders shaking me because I was hyperventilating, face completely white. I told them everything. Height, speed, the arms. They didn't laugh. By midnight, an order came down from the chain of command. No soldier leaves the perimeter alone, under any circumstances. The rest of that deployment, we moved in teams of 4 minimum. Nobody said why. Nobody had to. I never saw it again, but every time I've put on night vision since, every time that green glow clicks on and the world goes flat and luminous, I find myself scanning the far tree line first, because whatever was out there in that field saw me through 200 yards of Louisiana dark, and it ran like it wanted a closer look. Mike and I were not the kind of guys who got scared in the woods. We were both Marine reservists, both raised hunting these Michigan forests since we could carry a rifle. The Waterloo Pinckney wilderness was familiar ground. We'd camped there a dozen times. Late October, small game trip, nothing unusual about it. We built a fire, ate, talked until the cold pushed us into the tent around 10. Inside, it smelled like gun oil and damp wool and nylon. The usual Michigan night sounds wrapped around us. Owls, crickets, the occasional rustle of something small in the leaves. I was asleep fast, body heavy from the hike in. I was convinced we were the most dangerous things out there. The cold woke me, bone deep, joint-aching cold that had crept through my sleeping bag somewhere around 2 in the morning. I shifted and muttered to Mike that it was freezing. He grunted. Then we both heard it. A footstep. Heavy, deliberate, the flat-footed crunch of something placing its weight through dead leaves and brittle twigs. Not the skitter of a raccoon, not the delicate forebeat of a deer. This was a single, weighty thud, followed by a pause, then another. Bipedal. It was circling the tent, 20, maybe 25 feet out, slow and unhurried, like it had all the time in the world. Mike went rigid beside me. I could feel the tension radiating off him in the dark. My military training kicked in immediately, running threat assessments, cataloging explanations. Bear? Bears don't sound like that on 4 legs. Person? Out here? At 2 in the morning? The footsteps kept circling, steady, patient, and then they stopped. The silence that followed was the worst kind. Not peaceful, expectant. The whole forest had gone still with it, crickets and all, like the woods themselves were waiting to see what happened next. I found Mike's arm in the dark and squeezed. We didn't speak. 2 trained fighters lying in a 2-man dome tent, completely frozen, listening to nothing. Then came a deep, rattling inhalation from just outside, a massive intake of breath into lungs that were not human-sized. I had maybe 1 second to register that sound before the world came apart. The scream hit the tent like a physical force. Not a howl, not a roar, something between them and beyond both. A guttural bass vibration that started in my chest cavity and rose into a shrieking, ragged wail that shredded the air. The nylon walls shook. I felt something, mist, spit, vibrate through the fabric. The source was high, 5, 6, 7 feet off the ground. Whatever was standing outside was standing upright, and it was enormous, and it was screaming directly at us from 20 feet away. Every single thing I'd learned in the Marines evaporated. There was no tactical response, no rational thought, just one overwhelming certainty pressing down on my entire body. We are going to die. The scream cut off, and then the thing ran. Bipedal strides crashing through the underbrush, each one a percussive boom that shook the ground. I'm 6'2", with a long running stride. Lying there counting those retreating footsteps, I understood with sick clarity that each step covered more ground than mine. Whatever it was bigger than me, moving fast, and it had just announced itself directly at our faces. Mike's voice came out of the dark, ragged, quiet, a tone I'd never heard from him before. "We gotta go. Now." I was already moving, hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the tent zipper. Cold air hit my face when it opened, and the darkness outside was absolute and hostile, and I ran into it anyway, barefoot in my thermals, flashlight cutting a frantic path through the trees. We didn't grab the rifles, we didn't grab our boots, we just ran. I have no memory of the route back to the car. I only remember my palms hitting cold metal and wrenching the door open and locking it behind me. We sat in that sedan, shivering and silent until gray light finally bled through the windshield. My feet were cut and bleeding when we got there. I hadn't felt a thing. We went back at dawn for the gear, packed in total silence, and drove straight home. We barely talked about it for weeks. Mike still hunts, still camps, just not there, never there again. I do the same, but some nights when the woods are quiet and I'm lying in the dark, I hear it again, that wall of sound aimed directly at us, built from a throat that had no business making noise like that. Whatever owns the Waterloo Woods, it isn't us. We found that out the hard way. I was 15 that summer, stuck in a village so remote the electricity cut out whenever the wind blew. No map would show you this place. A scatter of adobe homes along a dry arroyo, dust on everything. Nothing to do after sunset except sit outside the little store on upturned crates and drink glass bottle Cokes. That's where we were, me, my cousin Javier, and a local boy named Diego, when the conversation drifted to El Viejo, the old man up the hill. Kept to himself, rarely spoke, and nobody had seen him in a few days. Diego pulled his father's .22 from behind the counter and grinned. "Let's go check on him." It sounded like an adventure. We were bored teenagers. We walked. Half a mile up a rutted dirt path, the old man's shack emerged from the dark. Corrugated tin roof, sagging walls, a broken window with jagged glass still in the frame. Javier and I hung back by a mesquite tree, while Diego moved closer, calling out casually toward the front door. That's when the old man came around the side of the house. He looked normal at first, stooped, filthy white shirt, barefoot. He shuffled a few steps, and I started to relax. We're just stupid kids about to bother a harmless old hermit. Then his body folded. Not a fall, a collapse, deliberate, joint by joint, palms hitting the hard-packed dirt with a sound I can only describe as wet, knuckles cracking underwater. He landed on all fours and lowered his face to the ground, and he started sniffing, deep, dragging inhalations, head sweeping back and forth across the dirt in slow, systematic arcs. The sound was rhythmic and wet, and it carried across the dark yard like it was the only thing that existed. My cousin's hand clamped onto my arm, ice cold. I told myself everything. He's senile, he's drunk. This is what isolation does to a person. The explanations kept coming, and none of them held, because I could see the intelligence behind it. This wasn't confusion, this was deliberate. He moved with a practiced, liquid efficiency. A man in his late 60s, crawling on all fours with the smooth economy of something that had been doing it for a very long time. He turned his head, and I saw his eyes, flat, pale, not squinting into the dark, seeing in it. Diego still hadn't noticed. He was near the front door, calling out again. The old man didn't go to the door. He crawled toward the broken window on the side of the shack. 3 feet of jagged glass teeth, maybe 2 feet wide off the ground. He reached up, hooked his long fingers over the sill, still on his knees, and began to pull himself through. His shoulders compressed, his spine curved in a direction spines don't curve. He folded himself through that broken frame like liquid, like a snake through a gap in a fence, joints popping and relocating with sounds that I felt in my back teeth. One leg disappeared last. Silence. The door was right there, 3 feet away. He never touched it. From inside the shack came the sound, low, rhythmic snuffling moving from one side of the dark window to the other, the scratch of nails on wood. He was on the other side of that frame, scenting the air, and the certainty that dropped into my chest was physical. He knew exactly where we were standing. Diego found his voice first, barely a whisper. "Run now." We ran, all 3 of us, the flashlights swinging wild across the mesquite, feet thundering on hard earth. I never heard a door open behind us. I never heard pursuit, but those pale, flat eyes pressed against my back every single step of the way back to the village lights. We never told the adults, didn't talk about it for years. The next morning, I asked my grandmother in careful Spanish about the El Viejo up the hill. Her mouth went thin and tight. "He is not a man you visit," she said, and turned back to her work. In rural Mexico, the old people talk about the nahual, a witch who sheds human form to move through the world on all 4s. I used to think those were stories old people told to keep children inside at night. I don't think that anymore.